What are some reasons to not move to your country? To Talnosim said, I live in the Caribbean, really expensive, really expensive. Like an apple for $2. Pippa Pug said, also salties, redbacks, brown snakes, tapins, floods, bushfires, hurricanes, blue bottles, bullsharks, cassowaries, drought, bullens, fire ants, dingoes, great white sharks, blue ring octopuses, irukandji, wasps, box jellyfish, funnel webs, stonefish, hammerhead sharks, tiger snakes, stingrays and pythons. On the upside, you won't get COVID or shot. Edit, because feedback, magpies, seasonal, bogans, cane toads, cyclones not hurricanes, drop bears, triggerfish, scamo, chip-thieving seagulls, bearded dragons, gonus, white-tip spiders, hoop snakes, jackjumpers, bunyip, yowie, emus, cars, platypuses, centipedes, octopi, no COVID shots. Grizzly Bear 3131 said, I am half Japanese and very in touch with the culture. Although I live in the US, I am fluent, speak it with my mom all the time, went to Japanese school in America for 8 years, and lived in Japan for a few months. Even after all that, everyone treats me like a zoo animal in Japan and like an outsider. I look a lot more American than Japanese. Sometimes when I go outside I even get catcalled. I love the country and the people, but it gets annoying. I literally cannot said. Yeah, I agree with you here. I lived in Chelyabinsk for 6 months, spent a fair amount of time visiting nearby villages and campgrounds. But the one thing I really enjoyed about Russia other than big cities were the campgrounds. Decent structures and even clean water for swimming. Forests were untouched and left alone, and the people are really accommodating to foreigners there. Villages were cute in their own way. Farm animals are allowed to roam freely wherever they please. Damn geese, and people took good care of what little they had. Pitpatbori said, well, I am Korean, and I can list a few reasons, terrible reasons below. Houses are ridiculously expensive. Edit, if you go there for a job, they will likely provide accommodations for you. It's hard to get a job without learning a form of Korean. It's always cloudy in the north part of our country, because of pollution from China. True romance is unlikely for foreigners. You won't be able to make many friends without already knowing someone. If you do not know Korean, most television channels will be useless. Manners are much different, so you have to be careful. And here are some good reasons. We have the fastest internet connection in the world. Very technologically advanced. You will never run out of exciting things to do. Pitpatbori said, a lot of Chinese and Japanese people, meaning very good Japanese and Chinese food. Extremely good food and drinks. Asian countries are very close by, meaning imported items from parts of Asia are cheap. Very kind people. Jobs have good pay. Everything works in an organized fashion. You get packages quickly if you order. The crime rate is incredibly low. The nature is incredibly beautiful. Public transportation in Korea is world class. A lot of places are 24/7. Very clean place. Healthcare is not expensive at all. Getting your life together is very easy. Education rate is very high. Just to clear it up, what I meant by the fourth bullet point is that they probably won't date you because they love you. They will probably date you out of curiosity. Edit, I'm going to try my best to answer all of the questions. Mordankinen said, Portugal here. Absurd taxation, when you consider the average income, gas prices, and the fact every single politician is a crook. Just yesterday, for example, we found out the mayor of Lisbon has been selling information to Putin and Maduro on their political opponents among the respective immigrant populations. Lovely. Niarajex13 said, our coin costs 2.5 the dollar. We are burning resources triple the speed. Our idiotic president actually wants to go back to oil energy and shut down all the clean energy projects. Everyone is on the edge because you can die just because someone wanted your phone when you took it out to check the time. Actually, the government lately has outright lied to people's faces about some things. Think that blue painted wall is yellow, okay, I trust you, and somehow people still believes them. Please, take my family and myself out of this sinking boat. Ekit 800 said, I'm from Italy. Italy is a great country if you watch it from outside or as a tourist. But living here is totally different. Finding a job is very hard and young people are often underpaid. Big cities are dirty, especially Rome and Naples. People don't know how to drive and there's a lot of traffic. If you don't know Italian, you would probably not be able to communicate with a good 60% of the population. It's pretty rare for people over 50 to speak English. On the other hand, the seaside and the countryside are gorgeous. Folks are very welcoming and the food is delicious. But again, it's a nice destination for traveling but not a good place to live. I would say it's more like a one-night stand than someone you would want to settle with. Fun Structure 1410 said. Vietnam here. If you speak up for yourself or confront someone publicly, the chance of you getting shanked with a small scythe used for harvesting wheat is very high. It has happened, terrifyingly often. Maybe they'll even use a knife. We don't have guns here, so we improvised. It's dirty and polluted as shit. Extremely conservative, so if you're a minority, doesn't matter which one, you be discriminated against on varying levels. Excluding Asians, of course. For example, being black is considered dirty and ugly. Being gay automatically makes you a crazed rapist. It's usually the old people that are conservative, but you have to shut up and listen to their bigotry or you'll be considered disrespectful garbage. Sexual harassment happens often and women get blamed, slut-shamed, harassed. Also, harassment is just boys being boys. You might get drugged and sold to China. It happens and the kids even joke about it. The academic pressure will literally kill you. Any news about a kid committing suicide because of academics will be labeled as, the kid was weak-minded and we have a tradition of studying hard, so you should be used to it. F-king fantastic, isn't it? People are dying and we say crap like that. Fun Structure 1410 said. We eat dog meat. Female rape survivors are blamed. Malay rape survivors don't exist in this country's eyes. Domestic abuse against your spouse, kid is F-king legal. Not legal like having a law, but just simply no one cares about you and you'll be silenced by society. We think Trump is a genius and Joe Biden is Trump, the real Trump. It's mostly due to the media warping our perception. No one dares to speak up because of society and society will shame you for it. Murder on the regular. Bullshit, pretend progressive thinking. It's all lies. We say we're progressive so other countries want to cooperate with us. People hate the government, but if they're a protest like the US, you're going to jail. Hong Kong flashbacks anyone. Traffic accidents are plentiful. Death everywhere. Selling bleached seafood, to resemble an exotic kind that exists, is exposed on TV and subsequently Facebook. Lie straight up that you don't sell seafood, again, on TV and Facebook. Boomers everywhere. People are disgustingly nosy. Fun Structure 1410 said. If you visit cities like Saigon or tourist destinations, then you will never know the truth. You might catch glimpses, but all of the things mentioned above? Would you ever suspect such an ugly truth? Thankfully, only 0.1% of Vietnamese people know about Reddit, so I can have free speech. Catcalling is okay. Girls are considered inferior to boys, though we are moving away from that. Thank God. Guys have to follow the stereotype or else. Auto-gay label. Corruption galore. Mental illness doesn't get treated, gets shamed, and the price for therapy is to organs. Please, I'm begging you. Whatever you do, don't move here. The things people say about Vietnam on the internet and review sites are lying. Don't ever come here. People are immigrating to other countries at a rapid pace. There are more reasons, but these are the ones off the top of my head. Didj said. Reasons not to come to my country. If you're gay, it's still illegal to have sex here. The government says they don't actively enforce it, but that's subject to change. However, it's not illegal to be gay, but this is still a socially conservative country, so act accordingly. Hot as hell in the middle of the year and we're practically a concrete jungle, so the mercury will climb even further. Cars are ridiculously expensive and you need a cert to own one, which can cost as much as the car itself. Work-life balance mostly non-existent. Fitzmaya said. Country of residence, massively successful COVID control measures which rely on shutdowns and lockdowns coupled with aggressive contact tracing and quarantining of F1s, to the point that entire apartment blocks housing hundreds to thousands of people, will be locked in due to one positive case in the building. While helpful, this seems to be losing efficacy and widespread vaccine availability seems quite a ways off now. Loads of people losing businesses, loads of people losing money and jobs, and very little government support for that. Until vaccinations are available, this cycle of shutdown seems inevitable, and many industries here cannot support those constant interruptions. Sacrifice to stay healthy is critical, but it is getting rather painful now. Lemon Difficult 9 said. South Africa. In no particular order. 1. Racism. Huge race wars stemming from apartheid. Look at the town Orania and farm murders. Then there's also xenophobia because there are so few jobs too. GBV against women, one of the worst in the world. Highest rape stats in the world, I think. Also, so many cases of domestic abuse, even in more urban areas. 3. High unemployment, almost a third of the working age population don't have jobs. Leads to severe poverty. So many are homeless and hungry. People turn to prostitution, drugs, alcohol, etc. Others beg for money on the streets. So sad. You'll see it at almost every traffic light. 4. So much crime. You feel unsafe every day. We have burglar bars on all our windows and trellis gates. Most people carry some kind of weapon when they go out. We have car guards almost everywhere. Car stealing is huge. The other day, my handbag literally got stolen right off in the mall in a public place. There are also so many scams as well. On top of that, cases of corrupt police are too common. Some police response times are ridiculously slow and our justice system is quite useless. 5. Bad roads. Potholes and sinkholes everywhere, that just don't get fixed. We also have reckless taxi drivers, not all but many, who don't abide by rules of the road and are packed beyond full capacity. There are also taxi wars and Uber versus taxi wars where people have been murdered over their jobs. Also, hijacking of cars and putting spikes in the road is too common. 6. Poor healthcare. Public hospitals are awful, dirty, overcrowded and understaffed. Private is better, but too expensive for most. 7. Animal abuse. Animals are treated like shit in some areas. Dogs are chained up all day and used solely for protection. There are strays everywhere and dog fighting rings get away with it. 8. Dirty. Just visit a public bathroom, you'll. Lemon Difficult 9 said. Likely find poo on the seats, pee on the floor, a toilet that won't flush, a stolen toilet seat, etc. There's litter and filth everywhere and sewerage systems are a mess and pollute water. It's a stink. 9. Politics are a mess. You think America's bad? Watch some videos of South Africa's parliament. We've also had a lot of corrupt leaders in the past who committed a lot of fraud and stole from the country. 10. Load shedding. Your electricity gets put out for hours every day, for most households at least. You have to plan your day around load shedding. What even is that? 11. Child-headed households. So many kids have to grow up so fast. They look after siblings from really young ages and don't receive education they need. Let's not get started on child abuse. 12. Crap education system. National pass rate in matric, GR12, is 30%. Most kids don't even make it that far. 13. Economy is in trouble. I think we're near junk status and the currency is almost worthless in other countries, so emigrating is tough. 14. Disease. High rates of HIV and TB especially in poor areas, due to lack of education, overcrowded living spaces, prostitution and bad healthcare. 15. 2. Social grants are a mess. Don't know details, but I know some poorer people have more children because they need a child support grant to just survive. Obviously, the system should not be driving people to this. There's so much more to add, but to put it plainly, 0/5 stars would not recommend XD, not for a visit and definitely not to stay. Fitzmaya said. This used to be a thing in the US and may return. Large theme parks, amusement parks used to often hire temporary foreign workers, house them in dormitories, work the shit out of them, and pay pretty well, compared to options at home for many of these workers. This may be coming back as vaccination improves the outlook for big parks in America. Wichigan said. South Africa. If you want to see kleptocracy on a grand scale, come on down. The only power provider government in the country had run itself into hundreds of billions of rands worth of debt. Once hailed as the most efficient power utility in the world, it can barely keep the power on in the country for more than a few days straight. We suffer through rolling blackouts constantly. Instead of maintaining the power plants and negotiating good coal prices, the ANC government has systemically stolen every cent they could without a single person going to jail so far. Not a single person. Our last president is currently on trial with more charges than you have fingers or toes by a lot. In case you're wondering, he's also part of the ANC. Also, he's probably never going to be brought to justice for his heinous crimes. We don't really have a police force. Again, due to massive corruption at every level of government. The police service is in disarray. South Africa is home to the largest private security force in the world. This is because you cannot rely on the police for anything more than certifying a document for you. Our own Minister of Police couldn't tell a reporter in live television who the head of intelligence in the police force was. Leading on from point 3, we have one of the highest murder and rape rates on the planet. Perhaps the highest. We have more murders each year than were killed in Operation Iraqi Freedom. More murders than a fucking war. Most of which go unsolved. This country of mine is fucked on a grand scale, and we have the ANC government with hands in the tills to thank for it. Pam WPG 204 said, "Free healthcare seems like a good idea if you are prone to mundane accidents, then it works out great. You show up in the hospital and you're taken care of free of charge. If you have a health issues that are a long-term deal, good fucking luck. Need a hip replacement? You're on a 1-2 year wait list. And with COVID going on? That list is being pushed back further and further. Along with healthcare cuts constantly because someone is paying for it, nothing is life is free. And if you don't shoveling snow with 3-week stretches of -40 Celsius, this isn't the place for you. Otherwise, I like it here in Canada." Teacher Hooterin said, "Germany, every person has to pay a set amount of money, not correlating to how much you earn, just about 20 euros for everyone every month. Not a tax, you have to pay it extra. It's called Rundfunkbetrag equals radio fee, loose translation. It's for funding official TV and radio stations. It's just, few people watch those channels or listen to them." Edit, I have been informed that it's more people than I thought it was. I should correct myself that few people in my age group watch it. The private channels are covered and still full of ads. It's like a Netflix subscription that you can't cancel. Reasoning behind it, well, you could watch it. I could have a child, too. Can I get child support even if I don't have one? Just complaining and joking a little, Germany is absolutely fine. Edit, I do think the create an independent source of information is a good thing. What I dislike is the part where everyone is forced to pay the same amount, regardless of the circumstances there, and 20 euros isn't a problem for me now, but it was when I was a student. That's the issue I have with it. Cookies Choco said, "Disadvantages to Norway compared to the US? I can't think of many, but it's entirely subjective. If you don't want to be social, don't worry about moving to a big city here. We aren't social anywhere, at least not the kind of social you have in the US. That's the way I like it, but it's not for everyone. People always say stuff is expensive here in Norway as a negative point, but we also make a buttload of money, so it adds up. This does not necessarily include students though. Our government-issued scholarships haven't been completely in sync with the increased prices for the last few decades, so if you're coming here to study, you should bring your own juicy scholarship. Students here often struggle on our own scholarships without getting a job on the side, but mainly because we're spoiled brats who expect to be rich all the time. I've been to the US 6-7 times, only big cities, and I can't even express how much I love coming home to Norway from each trip. We're a peaceful and quiet people compared to you. We, mostly, don't greet or talk to random people, we speak quietly, we just mind our own business. I always feel safe here. We're good at following the laws. We're not very religious. At all. Atheism, agnosticism, Jeff is the majority these days, especially with the non-old, but we rarely talk about it. Technologically we're ahead in some areas, behind in others. We're basically the US without all the shouting and shooting, with more money and less God. Zippy Zebra said, "Like most of the answers to this question, there's more to it than it seems. Like the fact that it depends where in the US and Norway you're comparing so much that you can't make generalizations. Oslo was definitely a lot louder than say Denver despite both having similar populations, and I'd say people generally keep to themselves more in non-southern cities in the US than Norway. And the median income in Norway is high, but not high enough to make up for the increased cost of living in taxes if you're well off in the US. So if you're not well off, Norway would definitely be an improvement, but if you have a high-paying job in the US, in my experience you're a lot better off than you would be in Norway." Edit, also, If you're not well off and you have kids, maybe don't come to Norway. They'll take your kids and put them in foster care if you're deemed financially unable to care for them. Norway reminds me of Japan in a lot of ways. A population with pretty much no diversity works well in some ways, improves cohesion, rule of law, etc., but also doesn't create the kind of place you necessarily want to move to as an outsider. At least that's my take as someone who lived there for a bit and has quite a bit of family that's emigrated there. Cressica said. England. Everyone I'm friends with wants to leave the country if they can afford it someday. All for different reasons. Some I can remember are politicians. The fact that we have to figure out how the government works by ourselves seems really dodgy, since schools don't teach you anything about it. Lack of support for people who need it. There are tons of homeless. The amount of people who are completely against immigrants. The typical stealing jobs. Messy, criminal BS which is so freaking toxic. The general attitude of people on stuff like immigration, Brexit. Don't really have an opinion myself on this, but I that others hated it. Toxic attitudes to others, people on benefits, immigrants, or just anyone different. Knife crime, and I can't remember the rest. That to a lot of people it seems like a great country in comparison to others, but everywhere has its faults. I don't think I've ever heard someone raised in England say that they want to stay here. It's a great place to live as long as you cut out the toxic people, don't mind the weather and ignore how stupid the politicians are. CSL Thutris said. I'm a proud Mexican, but there's a couple reasons I could tell. The worst for me is the heat. Depending where you are in the country, mostly the north, you can experience how it feels to walk 3 blocks and sweat as if you jumped in a pool. My city is in the middle of the Altar Desert, northwest of Mexico. Gets up to 50.6 degrees Celsius, 123.08 degrees Fahrenheit, in summer, every day. If you walk in over concrete at 3 p.m. with Converse shoes on, there's a chance that the sole will melt down. This happened to a teacher of mine. Used the shoes to explain the heat transmission between bodies. Cool teacher. RIP shoes. Got a C in the class. Surio God said. Canada. Housing is expensive here. Specifically here in Toronto and also Vancouver. Like, $1 million for a tiny bungalow. $2,000 plus rent for a 1-bedroom apartment. It's super cold for half the year, and depending on what province you live in, it could be even colder and could snow even more frequent. Other than that, Canada's great. Considered one of the safest countries in the world. We are the second largest country right behind the behemoth that is Russia. We have universal health care. If you live in the States, this is significant. Canada's in the top 10 of countries with the largest GDPs. We're famous for our maple syrup, hockey, and of course, the ungodly tasty food that is poutine comes from Canada. Mathusik once said, Brazil, high inflation, everything is expensive and the minimum wage is low. It's a country that you have to fight to get out of mediocrity. Financially speaking, you basically have money to pay your bills and sometimes hang out. But if you want to save money and be financially stable, you better quit hanging out, like I did. No matter who's in government, these people don't want your good. They just look for power and don't really care about you or try to improve the country. Our National Soccer League sucks right now. But still, I fucking love this place, lol. Datbaboy Eliv said. I live in Israel. If you are Jewish, you should still be extremely picky about when and if you want to move to Israel. There may be less anti-Semitism than any other place in the world here. But it's expensive to move to Israel. The price of homes is very high compared to other places, and to live in Israel the cost of living here can be extreme. And that's assuming that you know Hebrew. If you don't, you would probably be screwed for however your stay here may be. The wages are horrible for most professions and the country is politically unstable, with us having 4 elections in 2 years. Hopefully this coalition would last a full 4 years without being worse than the last one. There are random attacks from Gaza one every few weeks to months depending on where you live. I believe in a 3-state solution. If anyone feels like starting an argument, simply BC I live where I live, go for it. And with everything I said, I still chose to live here even as an adult and would not trade my Israeli childhood for any other childhood. Moving to Israel is possible but is hard and has to be planned carefully. Guanam Lord returneth said. Sadly no, in the formerly East German regions especially, although it's not just an East German problem, not in the slightest. A certain Nazi party called the AfD has been in 2nd or 3rd place in our elections, and our current government's leading party, CDU-CSU, Christian Democratic Socialist Union has been more and more open to cooperating with them. There's also a lot of unanswered questions regarding the NSU murders and how much of Verfassungsschutz, protection of Constitution, Nguyen could have done. Oh, and how about the former head of the Verfassungsschutz Hans-Georg Maassen denying that there's a right-wing problem and apparently hindering any progress in certain investigations? What did he do once they forced him to retire? Go all right-wing on social media. What a peach. Voliver016 said. Now some of the many things. Population. Corruption at all levels. Discrimination based on everything. Religion, gender, caste, region, language, money, and you name it. People are uneducated. Not talking about literacy because that is one more another problem. Poverty. Sanitation and waste management. Lack of basic facilities like education, healthcare, transportation, electricity, water supply, and now my hands started hurting. As this list goes on. So you think a problem and you can find it in my country. There are some good things like health and education is cheaper and accessible to everyone, but not quality one.